So for those who don't know me, I'm Terry.
I'm Hanka.
And I'm English. You can hear from that accent.
I'm Czech.
And we have two children, Misha and Sammy, who are, I have to think, 13 and 10. Typical dad. And we work with, well, Hanka, what do you do?
Well, I'm a teacher, so I teach at a grammar school full-time. Yeah, that's my job.
And we work with a missions organization called Josiah Ventures, and our work is to equip churches across Central and Eastern Europe to work with young people. So in the West, many churches have a paid professional youth worker that has been trained to do that. Across Central and Eastern Europe, most youth workers are people that maybe became Christians 2 years before. They're maybe 17, 18, 19 years old. So what you would call a volunteer, a lot of in our world, they lead big youth ministries. And our job is to walk alongside them and equip them to create disciple-making ministries. And we operate in 16 countries, all across Central and Eastern Europe. So as far north as Estonia, down to Albania, and across into the war zone in Ukraine. So in Ukraine, we work alongside about 100 churches. So we are very emotionally engaged with what is happening there. As an organization, because we have 27 staff in Ukraine, half of them are still there. And as a family, because our church is partnered with the Ukrainian church like you, and our family has been to Ukraine 2 times to serve there on camps.
Yeah. So we have lots of friends among Ukrainians.
Yeah. So for us, there's a very strong emotional attachments to what's happening because it's our friends and family, people that we know are dying, or also being heroes. So what I can tell you just about the situation right now, the Ukrainian church is amazing. You will never know what the Ukrainian church is doing, but all Ukrainians do. The Ukrainian church has created a massive network of a system that is bringing supplies in where no Western organizations will go, like big Western organizations, they won't go there. It's the war zone. The Ukrainian church will go in there, and we've been buying vans, we've been buying tons of supplies for those churches. They will go anywhere in the war zone, even where the Russians are, to provide humanitarian aid and to bring people out. And all of that is what the church is doing. It also means that the closer you get to the border with Poland, that no church is a church anymore. They're all refugee centers. So even our friends, our new friends who we met for the first time very early on Monday morning, she's the pastor's wife of a church in Kharkiv, which is being destroyed by now by the Russians. Their church for the last 2 weeks has also been a refugee center. Every Christian building in Ukraine is a refugee center. And it's amazing that all Ukrainians now know if they have nowhere to go, if they have no help, call a church. And so that's an amazing witness. The people that are working there, we have friends there, they don't sleep. I think they don't sleep. And they're being resourced by organizations like us. We're not the only organization doing this, but because we already had a massive network of Ukrainian churches, we turned ourselves around from being a youth ministry equipping organization into a humanitarian organization. So we ship in tons of supplies that end up in Kharkiv, Kiev, into the war zone, and we bring out people from our refugee centers into the West. And it really is, I'm in awe of what the church has been doing. Yeah, I heard a story yesterday of a specific medicine in Kiev that someone needed. It's no longer in Ukraine, and we got it to them within 3 days. Wow. So that's, big organizations, big aid organizations, they're fantastic. They take in tons of materials. The Christian network is taking in, initially we were taking in tons of materials. We're still taking in tons of materials, but we're also answering very specific needs. If a pastor in a church in Ukraine needs a generator because the electricity no longer works, we can get it to them within, depending on what's happening at the border, within 3 days, they have a generator. So that's how the Christian organizations are responding, and especially our organization. What I will also say, the church in Central and Eastern Europe has also responded. There's 1.2 million refugees in Poland. I think you might know that. A big chunk of those people are being housed in and by Polish churches. It's the same thing. There's no longer anywhere near the border in Poland. You can't have a normal church service anymore because all churches have become refugee centers. And the Polish church, so I don't know how many members does your church have right now?
Nearly 400 now.
So a church your size in Poland would have at least 200 Ukrainians that they're caring for now. And this wasn't something that they had planned for. So imagine that this time, in 2 weeks' time, you now have 200 Ukrainians. That's what is happening with the Polish church. They weren't prepared for it. They weren't expecting it. And 2 weeks later, that's the size of their response. And it's amazing. And what the Polish church, the people, I'm coordinating things with people all over Poland. And what they're saying to me is, this is hard, but it has transformed our church. We are now the church we always wanted to be. We don't have time to argue about theological things anymore. We are just being the hands and feet of Jesus. And so it's hard, but there's many blessings as well. And it's not just Poland. In East Slovakia, in Hungary, in Romania, in Moldova, across our region, churches have mobilized. The Czech Republic, we're next. I met with some Czech pastors yesterday, 2 days ago, and I told them, you can't see the problem because it's in Poland. But Poland is getting full, and we're next. And you know, in Ostrava now, we're processing 1,000 refugees a day, just in our city. So that's the size of the problem. It's a massive humanitarian problem, but the churches have done an amazing job of being the hands and feet of Christ. I'm so proud. That's everything to be a part of what's happening. But it's so terrible that it's a tragedy that's caused that to happen. So what does our life look like right now? I've spoken more internationally, but tell us about our last week and what are we focusing on now here in Ostrava?
Oh boy. Last week we got a phone call that there are 10 people, 3 families arriving, mothers with children, arriving into the Czech Republic, but they don't want to be put up, separately. They want to stay together. So we were like, well, I guess we can.
For 2 days, we can do that.
We can do that. We can deal with that. So we turned our house into, a hotel for 10 people.
A home for 10 people, not a hotel.
A home for 10 people. And that's what the situation is for us right now. Of course, as Terry said, those people have friends who are coming our way now as well. So I can't tell you what it's like to have all these people in our home. It's a blessing. It's super tiring and challenging, but it is what it is. However, the more we just sit and think and pray and talk, the more we're realizing that we are creating a whole community out of Ukrainians here in our city. Of course, all the people who come are either elderly people or mothers with children who need education. So at this point, what we are looking into is creating a school, a Ukrainian school. Of course, the government authorities are open to Ukrainian individuals coming into classes, but that's not what the kids need right now. They need to be together with the kids who have experienced the same thing, and they need to be educated in their language, and they need to learn our language together. So this is not something that the local authorities are able to, not just to see, but also achieve. Legally, they can't do that. And that's when we come in. Since I'm a teacher and I love working with youth, that's just my passion. That's something that I feel like is on my heart right now. So far, we found 2 places that would allow us to open 2 classes. Also, we were able to ask the, the immigration center that opened in Ostrava to actually interview all the women and let us know about all the teachers. So not only am I, we have that church community here, but in the last 2 days, I've been getting phone calls from complete strangers from Ukraine asking for a job. And accommodation and community. Like we play everything by ear. You can have plans, but
in Ukraine, plans, nothing works according to plan in Ukraine.
You get 100 phone calls in 1 hour. Things change. Yeah, so far this is what we would like to do. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's it. So
also, as members of a church, our local church is helping us equip or furnish the apartment for those 3 families that are with us now. And we're trying to mobilize even our church. A lot of our people are volunteering to load the vans and trains with aid to go to Ukraine. A lot of people, what's interesting is, it's been a blessing even for just our neighborhood, because when people see us with a group of Ukrainians outside, they come and ask, they're like, what do you need? Do you need children's clothes? I have a spare bed, So we created this Google spreadsheet that people just can add, what they're offering. And they pass it on to their friends as well. So then strangers, friends of friends of friends contact us to say, hey, I have a kid's wardrobe. Do you want it? Can I help? So this is our life. This is something that our church is very active, very relational when it comes to reaching out to the community of non-Christians. But man, I mean, this is huge what's happening right now.
And this is our future for the next 6 months. Like we told our church on Sunday, this is probably our last church service only in Czech for the foreseeable future. We have Ukrainian teenagers already coming to our youth ministry. And so we're discussing, do we mix, do we create hybrids, or do we create Ukrainian youth ministries as well? Do we create the Ukrainian church? We have pastors' wives here. There's a lot of Christians that are coming over as refugees, and the challenge, I sat down with one of them here today and I told her, you can keep coming to me and saying, can you house another 4 people from Kharkiv? But I want you to ask your people first, can we shepherd 4 people from Kharkiv? Because these are your children now. And our job is to equip you and encourage you, enable you to shepherd your flock. We will house them and we will help you and do everything we can to help you. But this is our problem together. You're not helpless refugees. You were sent here by God to serve other Ukrainians. But it is interesting that the people that we have, they were in the war zone, so they had bombing all around them. 2 days ago, Misha very quickly sat down, and it changed the whole atmosphere in the house because it was a loud noise at once, not expected, and they all jumped because a week before that was what they experienced. And every day they wake up and they find out which part of their city has been destroyed. So. And it's not like, their children's schools have been destroyed. It's not like some building somewhere. It's their community, their neighborhood that's being destroyed right now, and their husbands and their fathers. So that's our reality, but it's a blessing too. It's hard for us, but if the Polish church can do this, we can. And now, internationally, my role is to mobilize the West to respond as well. So I'm now involved with lots of big organizations. Josiah Ventures is the most active organization in Ukraine as a Christian organization. So we're seen as the experts, and therefore my role has been very elevated, and I'm responsible for things I never thought I'd ever be responsible for, and completely out of my comfort zone. But apparently we're the ones that know something that no one else seems to know yet. So, well, that's my life. So 2 things that we'd appreciate from you. Prayer. This is a spiritual battle. And I think God has the victory. It's hard. but God does have the victory. And I think a lot of Ukrainians are going to come to Christ because of this, what's happening. And I think a lot of Polish people are as well, because they see what the church is doing. I hope a lot of Czechs will, because they see what the church is doing. I hope your visa laws change and you get to experience it too. So please also pray for that. You know, the Ukrainian diaspora, they want to go home as soon as they can. And it's not hard for them to get home. They're not going to land somewhere and stay. This is, you know, they'll stay for as long as the war is on, and then they're home right away. And hopefully taking back with them people that have come to Christ while they've been here. So it's a spiritual war. You can see it in the news. There's a lot of evil things happening, but it's a spiritual war on a personal level. We're under attack. Yesterday, our coordinator in Romania, the guy that is funneling thousands of refugees in Romania, works for us, and he was in a terrible car crash. And he should have died. His car is unrecognizable as a car right now, but somehow he survived. He's hurt, but he survived. And at the same time, another lady here that's been caring for a lot of families had a bad fall and badly broke her arm. It's a spiritual fight. So pray, please pray. If you happen to know your prime minister, please explain to him why it's a good reason to change the visa laws, but I understand you can't do that. In the meantime, thank you so much. I know that many of you have given already through the fund that Josiah Ventures set up. And again, I can tell you, you know, I've told you about the medicine example and the generator example. So the money that's given, it's going to real needs in Ukraine. And it's going to get people out of Ukraine, and it's helping process people when they get here to help them land somewhere safe for them when they get here. So it's wonderful. But I would also say what we're setting up in Ostrava, you know, the churches in Poland are 2 weeks ahead of us. So I speak to pastors in Poland, and I'm learning what my next 2 weeks or our next 2 weeks look like. And we can't do this as volunteers. So I already know I have to employ at least 6 people this week to manage what's about to come to Ostrava to help us start the school. Hanka will be responsible for the school. And that's not something that we can do as Josiah Venture. That's something we're doing as a church, but our church doesn't have the financial resource to do that because we sent a lot of money into Ukraine already. And so I am also asking as individuals, could you pray about if you can want to touch real people's lives here in Ostrava by helping us set up a structure in Ostrava to create a school, to maybe create Ukrainian youth work, to help the Christians that are here become shepherds to as many of the Ukrainian diaspora that's going to be in Austria as possible. And
also one of the things I am not sure I mentioned is, you know, the schools that we're thinking of starting is, the idea is there'll be Czech volunteers, so people doing it for free, but we would actually like to employ the Ukrainian moms so that they actually can make a living out of it.
Yeah, the moms that are teachers. So, you know, they can either work in a factory. Factories right now are saying, we'll take Ukrainians, and we're saying, but they're teachers. We want to use them as teachers. You know, and that's the other reality of refugees. You know, you could be a professor in your home country and a world-renowned expert. When you're a refugee, you work in a factory and you're happy for any money you can get. That's our reality that hits us right now. But we want to use the resource that's coming our way to bless those children. And a lot of them are Christian teachers. So, you know, that's another way that we're going to reach into a lot of Ukrainian families by employing Christian teachers. So I think in the next 3 months, we need £50,000. A friend of mine took up the challenge yesterday and said, you need £10,000 right away to get this going. I'll get that for you right away. And so he emailed me last night and said, I found the money. It'll be in your bank account next week, but we still need £40,000 for our current plans over the next 3 months. If you could just pray about, can you individually support somebody, and you will see those faces. We will tell you those stories. I haven't been sharing on social media much this last week because I've just been too busy. So when I'm not on social media, it's not that I don't care. I don't want you to know. I just don't have the time to share. But if you look for Josiah Venture on Facebook, you'll see a lot of what we're doing. So that's that. Any questions? I'm sorry.
Sorry, can I just say, is that to the account that you sent me the details of? Is that to a different account for the church?
We're still trying to work out with my organization legally if we can funnel money through Josiah Venture to our church.
Yeah.
If not, then I'll send you a bank account that's to our church. So it would go straight to our church, not to me.
I think, I think we would love to direct money to your church. That would be a really good thing if we could. So send us the account and we'll work out how to do that.
And I called my church person this morning. We have two possibilities, the accountant, and he's going to tell me today which account we should use. So thank you.
And just tell us the name of your church.
It's called Církev Bratrská Trojka.
Okay, we'll just pray for your church.
Okay, we just say Troika. In the Czech Republic, we're known as this. I've written it in the chat. It kind of means Trinity. So we're Trinity Ostrava. That's kind of what we're called.
Can I ask whether the Orthodox churches are also involved in the way that you are?
That's a hard question. Yes, on the whole, yes. But the patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church, which most churches in Ukraine come under, sent a letter to the World Council of Churches 2 days ago and basically said, this is nothing to do with Russia. It's our right to defend ourselves. It's all your fault. And so, and that puts Orthodox priests in Ukraine in a difficult situation because everyone knows it's the Russian army. To give you an example of the power of the propaganda. So one of our new friends, her brother lives in Russia. He's an officer in the Russian army. These are the paradoxes here. And he's convinced that the Ukrainians are bombing themselves. And that's what Putin is telling everyone. If you watch Russian media, what they're saying is that this is Ukrainians bombing themselves. It's all Ukrainians. They're bombing the Russian people in Ukraine. We have to save them. And so, our guests, they're Russian speakers as their first language, and they've decided they never want to speak Russian again. They're learning Ukrainian because they never want to speak Russian again. But Putin is still saying to everyone in Russia, we're saving the Ukrainians from the Nazis. And that's the other thing, he calls the Ukraine, and the Russians believe it. 100%. I've heard so many stories now of fathers saying to their daughters, come home to Russia, your evil government is killing you. And when the daughter says, no, this is Russian soldiers that are doing this, no, of course it's not. It's the Ukrainians that are killing you. Russia is a prison right now. It's an information prison. I can share a lot more stories, but I won't. So also pray for Russians. That they don't realize that they're in a prison, but they are.
And also pray for Russians who are out of Russia, because some of them,
yeah, your students,
might be, how do I say nicely, not liked necessarily in Europe right now. And when you think about it, they themselves, there's a reason why they left Russia. They themselves are refugees, and we don't want them persecuted here for something that they don't even believe. So there are a lot of reasons to pray.
And we've had that for Malvern College students here. There are Russian students at Malvern College here who've had exactly that.
Yeah,
yeah.
This war is so complicated on so many ways. But as I said at the beginning, it's complicated. It's heartbreaking. I think it's going to get much worse before it gets better. So those visas, please. But there is a blessing. I'll say it again. My Polish church friends are saying we are now the church we always wanted to be. And even in our family, our children, they said to us a couple of nights ago, we're so happy that they're here. Like my children's lives have been turned upside down. They have no privacy, no toys. But they're saying we're so happy that we could do this because they see the impact. So it's a blessing. It really is a blessing what we're experiencing as well. Please don't think, oh, the poor Englishes. We're being blessed in what's happening. But it's hard, and it's going to get much, much harder. So, and if you have any friends in any other churches that want to know how to help the Polish church right now. They're running out of money. Help the Slovak church. Help the Romanian church. But it's amazing how the churches in this part of the world have just selflessly turned themselves inside out and are doing what they can for brothers and sisters in Ukraine, or for any Ukrainian. Anyway, sorry. We need to take ours to the zoo now.